to. When I chose that song as the audio song, I had zero clue Tony was going to be talking about what he did for Sunday school, looking at God's provision and looking at how he never fails to provide for what we need. After we talk about last week, the commandment of stealing and how when the truth really hits, we have what we absolutely need. God provides what we need, and He is so good for all of our life, through every moment. That song, every single time I hear it, it hits me deep. But moving on, I want to throw out a little bit of our family history. And I may get in trouble for this when I see my mom next. But there was an unwritten rule in our house when I was really little, particularly around lunchtime. And frankly, most days around lunchtime, there was an unwritten rule that we Howard children were to live by. That rule was, don't you dare touch the remote when Judge Judy came on. I don't know how many hours, if not even years, I spent at lunch sitting with my mom and maybe my sister watching episodes of Judge Judy. And I honestly don't know, but I'm guessing my mom soaked up quite a few hours of Judge Judy's quote-unquote wisdom, however you want to look at it, through all those days of watching Judge Judy. Now, that was the unwritten rule. Don't touch the remote. That's Mom's show. She made me lunch, so I have to sit and watch it. And it bored me every single day. And now it's kind of fascinating to see some of those episodes run and look back and remember my life as a 7-year-old watching Judge Judy. But the truth is still the same. All these shows, there's plenty of them like Judge Judy today. It's one of many courtroom shows that are all over the television. Divorce court, people's court, Judge Judy, you name it. I know there's more. I just don't remember the names of them. There's all of these shows all over the television networks. They may have new names now. I think Judge Judy is now Judy Justice, something like that. They may have changed names, but these courtroom shows are still popular on television. These different shows had many different witnesses or testimonies throughout them to share about what happened in each situation. Very typical of the courtroom scene, right? Having witnesses, testimonies, sharing about what exactly happened to get to the bottom of the clue, even in not courtroom shows, but just law enforcement shows, right? Witnesses and testimonies are seen everywhere. But it's ironic, to me at least, and it might not be to you, that when these witnesses go up and take their seat at the stand, they place their hand on a book and swear that they won't lie. I always find it ironic, the book they use is the Bible. Now, it's not ironic when we read the pages of Scripture, but it is ironic when half the people that go and sit at these stands usually lie in some form or fashion. And they can come up with excuses, oh, it's the half-truth, whatever, but it's ironic that they just placed their hand on a Bible and then lied. But it's the truth of how our society works. It's amazing to think about that when we read our commandment today in Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. We're very near the end of our 10 commandment series. We're on number 9. But Exodus chapter 20, verse 16 rings true in today's society, in our own lives, even more than most. Our commandment has a lot to do with the courtroom. It really does. When we boil it down, we'll see how much this commandment in Exodus chapter 26, verse 16, really deals with the courtroom aspect of life. But even more, it applies to our regular lives, because in all reality, not very many of us will ever go and sit and testify in a courtroom. With this in mind, let's go ahead and read Exodus chapter 20, verse 16 together. You must not testify falsely against your neighbor. Again, as we've seen the last few weeks, not a super long, not a super complicated passage to digest. It's a pretty simple one. And again, our summary can be boiled down to don't lie about your neighbor. Very simple, very simplistic. But when we look at the Hebrew, it brings in that courtroom aspect. The Hebrew actually, for lack of training in Hebrew, bear with me, it translates to you will not answer as a lying witness against your neighbor. The Hebrew brings in this courtroom aspect that I talked about in the beginning, saying, look, you will not answer as a lying witness. Someone who has seen their neighbor and then therefore lies. That's the commandment. Don't do that. So this lying right off the bat we see is a big deal just by the way that the Hebrew words it. But the question is why? Why does lying matter? Why should it matter if I lie or I say something against my neighbor? Or even sometimes more common in our culture, the question is, don't I have to lie to not offend someone? Don't I have to put aside what I believe, what I think, so that I don't hurt someone else? The answer is a very emphatic no. And we'll see why, beginning with the nature of God. The nature of God himself shows us the truth and shows us why this commandment is there. Because the entire nature of God is truth. The entire nature of God is truth. In every ounce of his being, God is truth. He never lies. He never changes his mind. Numbers 23, verse 19, lays this out for us. In Numbers 23, verse 19, if you want to turn there, please do. It says this: God is not a man, so he does not lie. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Has he ever spoken and failed to act? Has he ever promised and not carried it through? Again, what a beautiful reminder. Pause on the sermon, going back to God providing when he promises. But back to the sermon, what a beautiful reminder that God is not man. He does not lie. He does not change his mind. Now, are there times where God may react differently? Yes. There are times where God has said he's going to judge and destroy Israel, and then Israel repents, and God reacts and says, okay, you're going to turn back to me, I'm going to withhold. But overall, his judgment is still coming. So this verse is not contradicting other places in the Bible, so we can still trust what that very first part of 19 says. God is not man, so he does not lie. The entire nature of God, I've said this 3 times now, the entire nature of God is truth. So why should we go against his nature as his creatures and lie? But not only that, God's nature is not only truth, his nature is light. God's nature goes beyond just truth to overall light. 1 John chapter 1, verse 5 makes that very clear. me turn there real quick and read this. And I want to point out a couple neat differences after I read verse 5. This is the message we heard from Jesus and now declare to you. God is light, and there is no darkness in him at all. Now, the differences I want to point out are in the Greek. Not to give you a Greek lesson, but to show some really neat truth. In the Greek, in that moment where it says there is no darkness in him at all, there's a double negative. Now, don't quote me on that, but there's the essence of the Greek is that there's so far from being any darkness in God, it's impossible to fathom. There's no darkness in him whatsoever. There's no darkness in him at all. Now you may be asking, what's this difference between dark and light? Why does it matter if God is light or God is darkness? And I'll answer that. Throughout Scripture, light qualifies holiness. Darkness qualifies sin. Light is beautiful. Light shines. Darkness hides. Darkness covers. Darkness destroys. So when in 1 John, John himself writes, God is light, and there is no darkness in him whatsoever. He's getting to this point. God's entire deep nature is holiness. And lying breaks holiness. So again, to go back to Numbers 23, God can't lie. His nature is so far removed from that idea, it's nowhere near him. That holiness, he's so set apart. The nature of God, from the very beginning, understanding that the nature is truth and the nature of God is light, builds our understanding, or at least it should, of why lying is a big deal. Why testifying falsely against our neighbor is a big deal. Because when we do, we go against both of these natures of God. When we testify falsely, when someone asks me if my neighbor was causing a ruckus last night, I don't have a neighbor, but let's imagine, or you have a neighbor, and someone asks you, was there a ruckus? Were they doing something illegal? But maybe they weren't, and you say yes, because they just annoy you. Maybe you say yes to get them in trouble, to get them to stop spraying your flowers with weed killer. Whatever it might be, I don't know the situation. You might be thinking of one right now. But when we sit there and we say, oh yeah, they definitely were doing something illegal, but in our heart we know they weren't, we immediately break this nature of God. We break the nature of God's light and God's truth by testifying falsely, by lying against our neighbor. There's a lot of ways it can look, and we'll see some of those in the future, but that's why we have to be so careful. It's to not break the nature of God. And this commandment, let's be frank, challenges our human nature very deeply. It challenges our deep nature because the nature of man often goes against the nature of God. And this is no exception. Because the nature of man can be boiled down to hiding the truth. The nature of man wants to hide the truth more often than not, I argue. Not necessarily every time do we want to hide truth. Sometimes our nature wants us to just bring the truth to light. But more often than not, we try and hide it. We suppress it because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our loved ones. We want to protect others. Whatever it might be, we try and suppress the truth to avoid conflict. It looks so many different ways. I've said it again, and I'll say it now. It looks different ways. Sometimes we hide the truth because we really know we're in the wrong, but if I speak up about it, that means I'm not perfect. So we hide the truth from ourselves and from others to protect ourselves. At other times, we try and protect loved ones. You know what? Maybe someone that we deeply love did something wrong. And we get asked about it. And we lie to protect them. Let me put us in a situation real quick. This was also another thing in the Hauer household. If I broke a vase, glass shatters, and Mom comes up and asks Alexis, my sister, and I, who broke the vase? Well, as Seth, if I broke it, I'm going to sit there and want to protect myself and say, oh, it was Alexis. I got caught in that more than a few times. We try and protect ourselves so we don't have the repercussions. Then there's other times, maybe Alexis broke the vase and I don't want her to get in trouble, so I blame it on the dog. How the dog got on top of the table, we'll never know. But you know what? It's much better in our human nature to try and blame something that doesn't make sense than to blame our loved one at times. We see it in other circumstances too. Mothers, fathers protecting children who have done wrong, who have killed someone. But because they love their child so much, they cover it up. They try and lie away what happened. Or we try and avoid conflict. How many times are we approached, especially as believers in today's culture, are we approached with a question that we firmly believe, but to avoid conflict, we try and hide the truth. We lie so that we don't hurt someone else's feelings. For just one example, is the homosexuality and transgender movement sweeping this nation. How many times do believers get approached, asked, what does the Bible say? And for one reason or another, maybe it's in misinterpretation, or maybe it's hiding the truth. Believers, people who claim to follow Christ, will blame away and hide the truth and say it's all right. We try and hide the truth as human beings because we want to avoid conflict. Most people don't seek conflict out. It's just the nature of humans. We want to be liked. So we try and hide the truth so that we can be liked in the eyes of others. We have a fear of man more than the fear of God. But here's the ultimate problem. Here's the big issue. When we hide that truth, when we fall into the human nature and reject the nature of God, when we lie, we despise truth. And when we despise truth, we despise God, whose entire nature is truth. Now, I can't take that quote as my own. I found that in one of the commentaries I read as I was preparing for this. But it struck me. As we look at the nature of God compared to the nature of man, and we wrestle with that in ourselves, this shines through. When we lie, we despise truth. And when we despise truth, we despise God. Because God's entire nature is truth. If you get nothing else out of today, get that. That overarchingly sweeps the truth of what this commandment says. Our human nature tries to fight and turn away from the nature of God, the nature of light and of truth, because we want to hide the truth, because we want to feel comfortable, because we don't want to go into conflict with someone else. So we despise truth, we lie, and we despise God. It's a massive truth. It's a massive, can't think of the word I want to say, but it's a scary feeling. It's a scary thought to think about despising God when we lie. At least it is for me. I can't say the same. I can't put myself in your shoes. Maybe this is something you can brush off. For me, that shakes me to my core. To think that when I try and hide the truth, for one reason or another, I blatantly just am despising God. So the words we use matter. Partly because they hurt. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The typical saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a crock of I don't know what. But it's not truth. It's not truth. The Bible makes that very clear. The words we use hurt. Proverbs 18:21 is one such example of words being called out for what they are. Explaining that words do have an impact. It says this, the tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. The tongue has power. So we can't just go around saying that the words I say don't hurt anybody, because they truly have weight and they have power and they hurt. They hurt people. They really do. They stick with people. James 3:8 is yet another example of this truth. This is another, James, the author of the book of James, paints a picture. More than just explaining what the truth is, he paints a picture in James chapter 3. He discusses controlling the tongue as this powerful flame or the rudder of a ship. That's the picture he paints. But in verse 8, James says this, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Our tongue hurts. For one reason or another, our words hurt people. In very minor ways to very major ways, when we mean it or we don't mean it. Even as a joke, our words can hurt people. Our words stick with people. This is why what eyewitnesses say has so much weight in the courtroom. Because we give credit to what they say. Because their tongue has power. But the reverse can be true. That when we use our tongue, when we use our words to testify falsely, it tears someone down. Tears someone down. Our false witness could have drastic effects. Drastic effects. How many times have we seen in media today the stories of someone's reputation being destroyed because of what someone else said? Now, I'm not here to say that this testimony of someone is true or false. That's not what I'm here to say. What I'm here to say right now is that those words have power to destroy someone's reputation. So we have to be careful how we use the words we say. Because our words can destroy someone's reputation. Our words can destroy someone's life. Because not only do reputations get hurt, someone can lose a lot of money because of what someone else said. Beyond that, the words we say could even possibly end up getting somebody killed. Suicide is one of its highest in 2025. I don't have stats to back that. But suicide is at all-time high rates. And most people, when asked when family members are asked the things that the attitude of the person who commits suicide is all right to everyone around them, but on the inside they're dwelling on the words that they were told. The bullying they got at school. The words we use hurt. Or they can uplift. Right? Don't get me wrong. There is the hurtful side of words, but there's the benefit side of words too. When we encourage one another in faith and in truth, they build each other up. But we have to be careful because our words have meaning and our words have power. The command is clear. The command is very clear in Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. Don't testify falsely against your neighbor. But it's to abstain from lying. Abstain, to flee, to walk away from, to put off, whatever you want to label it. Abstain from all kinds of lying. Not just telling a little white lie. Not just lying to mom when she asks if you stole one of the cookies that we talked about last week. But from all kinds of lying. Deceit. Slander. Gossip. Now I want to stop at gossip for a second. Because society, we are so guilty of gossip. So guilty of this. We may try and label it 50 different things. But gossip is a terror within churches especially. Churches have closed doors because gossip has worked its way in and torn apart a body of believers. We have to be careful about what we say and how we say it. One of the most common ways gossip creeps into a church, and trust me, I'm guilty of it too, is when shouting or when spewing out a rumor, oh, but I'm just trying to pray for them. Have you heard about so-and-so? We need to pray for them. Now, are there times and are there ways where we can present prayer requests in a proper manner by saying, have you heard this is going on? But there's also times when we can come off as saying, oh, we need to pray for someone, but in all reality, all we're trying to do is get a rumor started, to keep a rumor going, to ruin someone's reputation, whatever it might be. We have to be so careful about the words we say. So careful, even in church, even when trying to pray for someone. Are we gossiping? Are we just trying to start rumors? Are we just trying to ruin a reputation? Or are we truly, sincerely wanting to pray for someone who needs the love of Christ? Gossip is a terror in churches because we oftentimes forget to think, to check the way we say things, to check our heart attitude before we say something. So gossip, it's a form of testifying falsely against one's neighbor. Another way is backbiting. Oh, I guess it skipped one. Backbiting. When someone's not in front of your face and you just slash their reputation, when you slash who they are as a person, and you go behind their back, stab them in the back to get more, to do whatever. Backbiting. Rash depictions of your neighbor. Now that's a weird way to put it. But when we walk around and when we blow these huge stories out of proportion of someone that lives next to us because, going back to an earlier example, they sprayed weed killer on your flowers, that might have been an accident. But we can blow these stories out of the water and say that they just hated you because you planted flowers when they didn't want flowers. That's a rash depiction of our neighbor. We have to be careful. Going back to where we started at, it goes against the nature of God. Going back to my favorite slide in this entire, probably series that we've gone through. When we lie, we despise truth. And when we despise truth, we despise God, whose entire nature is truth. When we're not careful with the way we say it, when we're not careful with how we bring up a prayer request, when we're not careful to watch the words we say, when we depict our neighbor, when we tell stories of what's going on with someone around us, we lie, we testify falsely, and we despise the God who created us. It's so dangerous. Just as James in 3 makes that picture of that fire, burning brush, it is a very dangerous thing that can consume everything around us. So we're supposed to do the opposite. We're supposed to do the opposite of these things. What is the opposite? The opposite is found in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Tony spent a little time there today. But in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25, in a section where Paul writes about how believers should relate to one another, Paul writes this: "So stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body." We're to put away the lying and to speak the truth in love. We're to put away the lying and speak the truth in love. That's what we're commanded to do. Even when it might hurt someone's feelings, the truth still needs to be spoken. Even when it could hurt someone near and dear to our heart, they could get in trouble, this truth needs to be spoken. We can't keep hiding the truth. We can't keep turning our back and despising the God whose entire nature is light and truth. We're called to put away lying and speak the truth in love in every circumstance. Whether someone walks up to us and is a homosexual, and if we have a relationship, a friendship built where we can say, "Look, I'm saying this out of love, but you're living in sin." Real love speaks up when we're worried about somebody else's well-being. Real love speaks truth when we truly care about someone else, for their eternal well-being or their physical well-being. How would it be if a doctor walked into the hospital room where you're at? If he walks in after you just tried to get a MRI, a CAT scan to see if you have cancer, and he walks in and says, "Oh no, you're perfectly fine," when in all reality, you have stage 4 cancer, but he just didn't want to hurt your feelings. True love speaks the truth when it needs to be said. It doesn't hide the truth. It doesn't try and put it away to avoid conflict, to avoid hurting someone's feelings. So we can come up with as many excuses as we want, but the truth still stands. Half-truths, blatant lies, deceit, gossip, it's lying. And it's despising the nature of God Himself. So let's put it off and speak the truth in love. And now I want you to hear this too. That even means to ourselves. We're to speak the truth in love to ourselves. The thoughts we have, the way we talk to ourselves, all of that should align with what we went through. All of that should fall under the same command. When Satan tries to whisper in our ear and tell us lies and get us to believe the lie that we're not good enough, God could never love us, we're too far gone, we need to speak the truth. Just as hurtful as our words are to others, they are hurtful to ourselves. We have to be above reproach in dealing with others, but also in ourselves, to truly dwell and live with God, with Christ. We have to put away the lying and speak the truth in love. Our closing song today makes that very clear.